Now, a Qatar Airways flight has hit severe turbulence over Turkey, injuring 12 people. The Boeing 787 landed safely as scheduled in Dublin, but last week a Singapore Airlines flight made an emergency landing in Bangkok after severe turbulence killed one passenger and injured dozens of others. Bloomberg's aviation reporter Danny Lee joins me now from Hong Kong. Danny, pretty alarming that two such turbulence incidents have happened in the course of the last couple of weeks. What exactly has happened, and what do we know about this latest incident that occurred on the Qatar Airways flight?
Yeah, another bout of turbulence and more injuries, but this time on a Qatar Airways flight from Doha to Dublin. Of course, this incident happened over Turkey. The plane was okay enough to fly onwards to its final destination. Qatar Airways say, though, that the 12 passengers and crew who were injured suffered from what they say is minor injuries. But, with these kind of incidents frequently being highlighted taking place, it just highlights the need for passengers ultimately to be wearing their seatbelts, because it's a rule that is not mandatory when you are flying. And of course, with what happened last week with a Singapore Airlines jet where one person died and several dozen people were injured, and people who suffered extensive injuries from paralysis to spinal and brain injuries, which people are still also being currently treated for in hospital in Bangkok because of that Singapore Air incident.
I mean, one of the takeaways for me after just watching these incidents the last couple of weeks is I'm not sure why I would ever take my seatbelt off sitting on a plane going forwards, but I'm curious to hear what some of the passengers on board that Qatar Airways flight had to say.
Yeah, there were some very colourful accounts of what had happened, and particularly from one of the passengers who spoke to the local broadcaster, RTE, had said was that, it felt like the plane was falling for several seconds. Food was flying around the cabin. Some of the people who observed having cuts, one of the crew on board was in a sling afterwards. Now, it is ultimately very important that people do wear their seatbelts at all times. That's what the airlines advise. But it doesn't seem like there's an appetite for necessarily change to make seatbelt wearing a mandatory rule, and it's very difficult at a global airline level to get any kind of aviation safety change done very quickly. It sometimes takes years, even a decade or more, and it's actually going to be one of the topics that is probably going to be talked about a little bit in Dubai actually over the weekend when the global aviation industry actually gather for their annual meeting. So it's going to be very interesting to hear what airline CEOs have to say. But for now, in this Qatar Airways incident, the airlines say it is conducting an internal investigation.